So we'll go into our match 5 with a pretty medium record of 2-2. You know, nothing particularly exciting. We're not feeling great about it. So after that start, but we decide to keep playing. We get paired against Nathan Lippetz, who we know has a pretty broad range of decks. So once again, we're choosing not to put them on anything in particular. We lose the die roll. And we get a hand we have to mulligan. Opponent mulligans as well. And I think we choose to keep this hand, because at least it does some things. And opponent's serum powders, which incentivizes us, tells us, number one, that they're on Hollowvine or some kind of Hollowvine deck. And we know, and we have a strip mine. So, I chose to mulligan. That's interesting. To be fair, I'm not sure if that mulligan was a good idea or not. A single wasteland usually doesn't do it. And I don't know if a 5-card hand is going to be much good for us either. But I think I still maybe should have kept off the strength of the previous hand. At least this one, look, we have a Swords to Plowshares, and opponent's mulliganing really low. I think maybe I was mulliganing for like a third path Iconoclast, which I think is kind of generally our best way of overtaking this match. Yeah, I'm not convinced that mulligan was good. But never mind, opponent's on 2. So as long as we can, do something like find a wasteland pretty promptly, we're probably not doing too badly here. So opponent's got kind of a squee hand going on with the Master of Death there. So they're going to be drawing a lot of cards. We are going to protect our Swords to Plowshares. And start looking for action. So this is actually really good. Like, Lavinia is really strong in this match, as it shuts off all their threats except for the Vengevines. And then we can just try and control the Vengevines with Swords to Plowshares, especially knowing there's only 3, and we have Lavinia plus Dreadhorde Arcanist to try and fight over that with. We know opponent's not going to have Wasteland, not Wasteland, Force of Will. And we know that just because they've only got 1 card in hand, so we are going to fearlessly deploy this Lavinia. And put our opponent in a tricky position. So now they've got double squee. Still not scary. Like, they are drawing 3 cards a turn, so they will eventually find their Vengevines. But we're not super worried about that at the moment. So now we need to go looking for more coloured mana. So we have to bottom a second Swords. We would have liked to have kept it, but we really need another land. We can chip in. We're going to be basically getting a lightning bolt in every turn because of the Master of Death. We do need to decide if we want to... So our Force of Will here will pretty much strictly be for a Hex Drinker, if they deploy a Hex Drinker. Mox Pearl is a nice pickup too, as we now have basically like a a card that can cast Swords to Plowshares that can't be wastelanded. And it does mean that we might also end up being incentivized to Force of Will something like a Collector Roof if they happen to play main deck Collector Roof. Opponent's seeing a lot of cards. Yeah, another Wasteland. We draw another Swords to Plowshares. So opponent's just desperately trying to dig. There we go. They've got one of their Vengevines. So that's step number one to trying to beat us. So they will trigger that eventually, right? So eventually they'll just manage to get enough of these little things that in hand that they'll just be able to drop it. And won't have to worry too much about losing a couple of creatures in the along the way, just because of the number of squee activations they're getting. So the one thing that could kill us is maybe if they manage to get 3 Vengevines at once, we might not have enough time to Swords everything before the damage is done. Because we would have to take 12. So yeah, they're trying to trigger the Vengevine here. I wonder if this was maybe premature and they were meant to try and get multiples at once. But never mind. So we'll just go ahead and Swords the Vengevine pre-combat. And a land is perfect. So I think we want to drop our Dreadhorde. Yeah, okay, we're dropping Dreadhorde Arcanist here. That is kind of like our, from where we are, exactly what we need to stabilize. It'll just let us get maximum value out of our swords. It's going to let us find some more lands, which we desperately need. And hopefully mean that we can get... We might not even want to show them Third Path Iconoclast at this point. Make them think we're still playing a deck with Ragavan. So opponent has, what have they exiled? So they have 3 hollow ones and 6 of these. 5 of these remaining. If they can find another Vengevine there. They're desperately just trying to keep us off all and any mana. We're not playing the Wasteland here. We're holding that for a green source. And actually, so we're really happy to find the Sapphire here. Because the Sapphire is going to let us keep... it's our blue mana, right? To let us keep cantripping. And to let us keep finding our action. We will take... Doesn't really matter what we take there. It could be another Swords. It could be... a Brainstorm. We can only cast 1 Swords this turn, and we can't Brainstorm this turn anyway, so... I do think at this point it's actually too late for opponent no matter what, just with the amount of swords that we found. So even if he manages to double Vengevine this turn, we will only take 4 off the first one, and then we will remove the second pretty much straight away. And we Brainstorm. Don't find anything super exciting. We do have all our colours now. And fetch land's kind of nice, so I think we can shuffle away like... both the Iconoclasts. I think I like shuffling away the both the Iconic. Oh, did we? Yeah, I think I like shuffling away both the Iconoclasts. I think that just makes more sense. But I think it's pretty minor at this point. So opponent is going to triple Bazaar again. They're getting pretty close to decking at this point. Fourth Bazaar, not surprising that they found that they've had plenty of time. And this is the second Root Waller. They get the Vengevine down. We'll just go ahead and Swords that. And yeah, we've taken over the game. So, on to game 2. So we're obviously on the draw this time. And from memory, I keep a really speculative hand. So I keep this. So my logic here is that we have something like 3 draws to find a blue source. Or any land, actually. So we'd even take something, might even consider like drawing like a wasteland or something to be reasonable here. The reason we have 3 draws is we have draw for turn. We can play out the Tabernacle. We may or may not want to. We may end up just wanting to store the bauble and play as a stored draw to stop us from having to discard to hand size and then cycle it in the opponent's turn. But then, so we draw for turn, we draw with bauble, and then we can draw again. Any blue source makes this hand really good, but maybe not strong enough against opponent. For what it's worth, I'm a little bit liberal with some of these keeps because I've often found this matchup really difficult. And I'm kind of happy to have a Wrath because I've just tended to find so many of their opening hands are something like Root Waller, Vengevine, Hollowvine, and I just get absolutely run over. So at least the Tabernacle here will save us against those draws and hopefully let us find some other cards. So we'll keep. Opponent exiles again. So powder again, so they didn't lose anything particularly exciting this time. They did lose a couple of squeeze, which is nice. Means it's harder for them to get their squee draws going. And I think the squee draws and the really fast aggro draws are what terrify us the most. And we have the answer for the aggro draw. So having it harder for them to find a squee draw is much better for us. Opponent runs out. Lots of threats. We feel like a genius now for having kept a Tabernacle hand. And opponent bashes us for 4. Lavinia is another nice pickup. Because once again we might end up wanting to try and ride Lavinia to victory. We'll just play the bauble now. Could see another Bazaar. So we wrath our opponent's board and we rip a Surgical off the bauble, which is actually kind of nice because it'll mean, we're not just going to get rolled by Vengevines. So the haste on Vengevines is kind of like what really makes me scared because it just increases the clock so quickly. It also means that Lavinia is going to be a lot better when we can get her down, because if we can remove the Vengevines, then Lavinia actually just, I think, means it's close enough to lights out. And we've managed to spike a Tundra just in time. And we will go ahead and Ancestral in our opponent's turn just to try and make sure we can hit a land. And we should have actually done it in response to the Master of Death, but there you go. Opponent's going to Bazaar. Bazaar again. Oh no, they're not going to Bazaar again. Okay, so we instep Ancestral. Just going to make us overdraw, I think. Actually, maybe not. So we go up to 9, 10 cards. You know, it's going to make us overdraw, but that's fine. And we get even better because we get a Lotus and a Sapphire. So now that Wasteland, the Strip Mine, can't just take us off blue. If that's the way the opponent decides he wants to play it. I know he probably actually has to hold it up for the Tabernacle, but, you know. And we now get to deploy our Lavinia again. An opponent's going to Bazaar to try and get a creature on the board. And we now get to basically just lock our opponent out of... I actually think this is game over if opponent was able to see our hand. Maybe we should have just surgical extractioned the Vengevine straight away, but I didn't want to be hasty, and you know, you never know if there's something else maybe you wanted to go after, especially because we may just be able to swords the Vengevines. So we pay for our Lavinia. So the Tabernacle's pinching our mana a little. We will go ahead and ponder here. And we don't actually want to run out the third path Iconoclast here just because of the Tabernacle. So until that's removed, I think we're holding on to this. We do want the land and the Preordain, I think. I'm not actually sure if there's anything left in the game we need to force. Actually, yes, there probably is, and once again, it's probably nothing other than a Hex Drinker. So crack in, start getting a little bit of a clock going. Once again, with the Master of Death, we're in for around about a Lightning Bolt a turn. And I think from here on in, we now get to tap the Volk to pay for our Lavinia. Hope that opponent never decides to Wasteland off a Strip Minus off our Tundra. And what are we drawing? We're drawing Preordain. And Tormod's Crypt is nice. And might actually just seal the game up here. Yep, there we go. So Tormod's Crypt seals the game. So we're now 3-2, and having managed to 2-0 one of my, what I consider to be one of my worst matchups. So I'm pretty happy.